on to our next chapter. And Alpha is still reading the terms of service contract to Akira. Alpha floats above Akira, her hair whipping in the wind. Well, it looks like it's whipping in the wind, but she's a hologram, so she can float. But we get Akira's answer to her whole terms of service thing, and he says, yes. Alpha then floats back to the floor, and lets out a whew, and she says thank you. Don't worry, I won't do anything bad. And she asks Akira to come here, and she starts to explain some of the benefits of the contract. She says, now that we're contracted, I can give you all kinds of support. First of all is telepathy. And Akira says, telepathy? And she says to him, try talking to me using your mind. He thinks Alpha, and she thinks, what, Akira? And the advantage of using telepathy is that you can transfer your thoughts without any delay. And with enough training, you'll even be able to maintain it for an extended amount of time. Accurate and high-speed information exchange is very important during times of combat. And next up is support shooting. Alpha and Akira go out to the desert to test out their new skills. Alpha tells Akira to aim at that rock about 100 meters away from you. And he says, which one? Suddenly, just like out of a video game, a crosshairs appears in Akira's eye. He freaks out, telling her, Alpha, there's something wrong with my vision. Did you do something to my eyes? Alpha explains, I added some extra functions in your vision with my ability. She tells him to try to focus on shooting the rock. We learn that he also has a zooming in function. Alpha tells Akira to line it up with the blue line and he'll have a higher chance of hitting the rock. Akira lets one go, but he misses. It was because of the recoil, it changed the bullet's trajectory. Alpha tells Akira, you'll have to aim at monsters in real battle, you know, so take better aim. Akira says, I understand. Alpha then kinda goes off track and asks, by the way, you acted all flustered when that shopkeeper from the other day. Is she your type or something? Akira, a little flustered, said, that was out of the blue, I just bought some equipment like usual. Alpha replies with, nope, you weren't acting normal and I know that. But she drops the topic, and she starts to explain a little bit more of the enhancements and support she can give him. Alpha then goes over what they agreed upon, that she wants him to explore a certain dangerous ruin, and to not forget that all of her perfect supporting is just advance payment of her reward. Alpha asked Akira, do you have any questions? Akira says, questions? To be honest, that's just too much information for such a short time for me. Please tell me the details again later when the time comes. Alpha decides to keep it simple, and she says, in that case, I'll tell you our current plans for the future, including your training. Basically, we'll explore ruins once a week, and then we'll use the other days for training and studying. In your case, you'll start reading and writing. And Akira kinda starts enjoying the good life, taking nice baths, sleeping in a bed. And Alpha tells him, I'll give you my utmost support until the day you can accomplish my requests. So trust in me, Akira. It looks like Akira has made progress on his studying. He's looking at his hunter's ID and says, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, the name written on my hunter's ID is wrong, right? He reads off the name he put before he could read, and it says Ajira, and he says, who the heck is Ajira? But I can read it, so I've become smarter now, huh? And the next panel is of a ruined city and a desert wasteland. And in that same wasteland, bullets hit the floor, rocks go flying. It's Akira and Alpha. They're out there training, and Akira's even improved in that situation too. So Alpha tells him, let's move on to the next phase of training then. And it's actual combat against the weapon dog. And on top of that, it's a missile pod weapon dog. The weapon dog doesn't waste any time and charges in at Akira. He raises his weapon, but he misses, and the weapon dog closes at a distance and slashes through Akira. But he's fine, and the weapon dog disappears. Akira crumples to the floor. Alpha says, don't worry, that was just a CG, like me. But that Akira that got slashed is still there, on the floor, gory and bloody. Akira, rightly so, is a little surprised, and Alpha tells him, we should get you used to encountering monsters out of the blue, because if you get shaken like before, you'll end up just like this image. The training continues in a montage. Alpha telling Akira orders, always aim for their weak points, or at least inflict enough damage to disable them, otherwise you'll get deceased when they attack you. Take aim while keeping in mind that you will be unalived if you miss your shot, so you don't end up like the pile of bodies behind you. And in the next shot, Akira is unloading his weapon. A giant pile of bodies of Akira's behind him. Alpha tells him that they're done for today, but Akira notices that something is heading their way. He takes out his binoculars and takes a look. It's two female hunters. Akira says out loud, "Hunters, don't tell me they're pursuing me too." But Alpha tells him that she thinks they're just simply heading to the same ruins. But before that, just to be safe, go into the ruins too. Just in case they're not friendly hunters. He wouldn't be able to run away from them in this area. The two hunters are traversing the area in what looks to be a giant armored jeep. They both end up being two beautiful women. One asks the other, "Sarah, how's your body?" She says it's alright, don't worry. We learn that Sarah is a remodeled human and she lives off of nanomachines, and she stockpiles those nanomachines in her chest. And judging by the current size of her chest, she is running low on nanomachines. And the blonde-haired one says, "If we return with nothing again this time, I'll sell my equipment and forcefully stock you up on nanomachines." Sarah says, "We don't have the money. If you do that, as well, we'll lose our means to explore the ruins, you know." Sarah says to Elena, "Let's just hope this rumor's true." And Elena says, "I know, Sarah." We get back to Akira and Alpha. Alpha says, "Akira, we'll move away from here." Akira says, "More hunters? Why are there so many hunters around here?" Alpha says they're talking about a rumor that some slum kid had found an expensive relic in this ruin, so it seems that they came looking for the truth. Akira says that slum kid is me, isn't it? So, all of these hunters are here because of that rumor? Alpha says, because this area is relatively safe, all of the relics around her have been collected. So if there's an untouched place that even a small kid can explore in this area, there'll be a lot of hunters who want to research that area. Akira and Alpha moved again. This time, it's a ruined building we're looking at, that they're on top of. Akira asks, "Alpha, how's the situation now?" Alpha replies to him with, "Most of the hunters have left the place. It seems that most of them thought it was just a rumor in the end and went back home. But the two hunters from before are still around. Those two hunters are pretty good. They're closing in on your footprint for sure." Akira says, "Is that so? I really don't want to meet them. I've had enough fighting against other hunters lately." Alpha says, "But they might be deceased soon." Akira says, "How do you know that?" Alpha explains, when all the other hunters went back home because the colorless mist was getting thicker, they decided to keep searching the ruins. They can't make logical decisions. Akira says, "Is that so? By the way, what is the colorless mist?" Alpha points ahead of her and says, "Do you notice that it's blurry if you look towards that direction? That's because of the colorless mist. If it gets thick enough, it won't only block electromagnetic waves transmissions, but it'll also block out even sound and smell. Thus, it'll block both living and mechanical organisms from getting information about its surroundings. Other than that, it'll reduce the firepower of the guns, thus lowering their range and accuracy. And in that case, where it gets thick enough, you'll even be able to see the trajectory that the bullet leaves behind. The worst part of all of that is that it reduces my enemy searching range. And the worst case scenario, you might be able to notice the enemy around before even I do. And when that happens, their survival rate basically drops to 0. Since it's a common sense, you should remember that," Alpha says. Akira replies with, "Okay." Akira, while looking through his binoculars, notices something. It's a giant explosion, and he asks Alpha, "What's that?" She says that's a monster, and a big one too. She tells him it seems that a big monster is heading towards those two girls. Akira says, "In that case, let's get away from this place while they're busy fighting that monster." Alpha says, "That's a good idea." We see those two same girls exploring, looking for the ruins. Elena says, "Sarah, we can't go any further than this. Let's withdraw." She replies with, "Alright." And it looks like what Akira and Alpha are talking about did happen, because her search radius has been considerably lowered, and that they should have pulled out a lot sooner. Sarah comforts Elena by saying it's okay, we just need to be careful, and then just then, a sound rings out. It's gunshots. Elena and Sarah decide to take cover. Elena takes out what looks like to be a scouter, and she looks ahead and says, "Wait a second, there are 8 hunters and 1 big monster, and they're headed our way." And we see that giant monster chasing down those hunters. The hunters are fleeing and trying to shoot it while running, but it doesn't look like the bullets have any effect against that giant monstrosity. Sarah decides to help them and gets involved by pulling out a giant antimatter rifle and tells them to get out of the way. She'll take it out in one shot. Sarah fires off the giant rifle. It tears through the monster's skull, making quick work of it. She says that should do it, and the hunters run past them. But something falls from one of the hunters. It's about to hit the ground. It's a hand grenade. Sarah jumps on Elena, taking the blast for her. The explosion is humongous and covers a wide area. Both Elena and Sarah survive, but they're unconscious. And those same hunters that they saved now loom over them with evil in their eyes. And that was chapter 5. Thank you for making it to the end of the video with me, and could you please do me a huge favor? Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and look forward to the next episode. Velvet out.